I start recording this just as my cat walks across the screen. Thanks, pancakes. I may just need to put her on my lap. But I wanted to speak briefly about non-physical teachers. Let's just do this. Non-physical teachers. The non-physical teacher aspect of ascension is something quite worth discussing. There are a lot of best-selling metaphysical authors that discuss this. Gary Zukav being one of the primary ones that I have referred to that really speaks well to the experience of having a non-physical teacher. So we have teachers in our lives. I know I've had teachers, coaches, instructors of special hobbies I had. I took baton twirling in elementary school. Some people have those mentors, special professors even in college that I've had that have really connected to me on a meaningful level. And so we have those in all aspects of life that are tangible, that you can see, that you can hug, that you can experience. But in a spiritual process, there are also something known as non-physical teachers. And those non-physical teachers, they are often what people will describe as angelic beings. They'll say, Spirit told me to blah, blah, blah. And so spirit, that term, or the universe or whatever, oftentimes that's just a nudge that we get, that we give the name of God or spirit, which is not to say that's not the case, but we have an enormous spiritual team. Every one of us does. And so when we're getting nudges that are go this way, not that way, or you need to do this right now, speak to this person at this moment, give this homeless person $5, whatever it is, it's usually that nudging voice in your head, and we think it's either ourselves or we think it is spirit, and that's a great way to define it if you don't know who exactly you're speaking to. But when the ascension process kind of continues, you start being able to identify it's not just a singular voice. They all have different kind of cadence to their communication style, and in that you begin to learn who you're talking to. And you don't go to your piano teacher to ask how to best serve a volleyball kind of thing, So there's different versions of teachers that have different tonalities to them. So my first experience with a non-physical teacher, outside of just a voice in my mind that I couldn't really define as anyone in particular, but I knew it wasn't myself because of the way it spoke. And I think most people have had that experience where they are told to do something and they have a knowing and what have you. And the biggest one for me that I really could grab and be that was not me. That was something out there that told me to do that. And that was when I was having an experience of being septic, and I needed to go to the hospital immediately. And I was told, go to the hospital right now. And I did, and it's good because I almost went into shock, right? So that is a knowing that was undeniable. And so once I did that, I realized there's a thing out there that I can't really define that is potentially watching out for me. Is that God? Is that an angelic being? I don't know. I didn't know then. But during the ascension process, as I was going through the shedding of shadow and that sort of thing, as I'm kind of going through the dark parts of myself in order to get to the lighter parts of myself, it was turning up the volume. A lot of people refer to it as tuning into the right radio station. So each radio station has an FM radio station has a point, we have the 94.9 in Boise, the river, or whatever. So you tune into it, you're just almost there, but you can't quite hear the music. You hear a lot of static. That's maybe before you're in the awakening journey. There's something you can't quite get. What is that? I feel like I'm getting a message, but I don't know what it is. And then once you like get to a certain point, the voice is much clearer, or you get sensations like chills on your arms or your head or something to like affirm that this is what I said was just true. But what happened for me, and it happened a little into my journey, so like probably 4 months in, I was walking in the evening. I did that quite a bit with my dog. I started doing that during COVID, just walks every night, and it really helped get all this like Kundalini energy moving through me, was to go on these walks. And I was walking down my street where there's like a woman with a golden retriever who always barked at me, and my golden retriever. And right as I was walking underneath their tree, I heard the word Melchizedek. And I didn't have reference for what that was. I didn't know that name at all. And I'm like, why does that sound familiar? And I do live in Boise, Idaho. So there is the fact that Mormons do discuss Melchizedek a bit. Like they have a priesthood that people can hold called the Melchizedek priesthood, I believe. I don't know. I should probably ask someone about that. But Melchizedek is in the Bible. And I didn't know who he was, but he was like, boom. Like that name just kept on repeating in my consciousness for like days. Melchizedek even woke me up from sleep. Melchizedek. And I'm like, what is this? And so once I was kind of like open and willing to understand what was happening, my cat's having a zoomy. I was able to kind of be open to receive information from Melchizedek, who ended up being one of my very greatest teachers. And he is he has a certain tonality to his voice which is not heard audibly. So when people are like, voices, that's not how I hear my teachers, my non-physical teachers. I hear them in my thoughts, but they don't speak like my voice. So people that know me know that I have a certain like pace, or I'm very wordy. I use like a lot of phrases of familiarity, and this is not that. Like it's a completely different being. And he is a very old school teacher. He's kind of like, I guess, Dumbledore in that way. Like he has a long white beard and long white hair, and he's like an older grandfather figure maybe. But he's very, very obviously knowledgeable, and has been around, I guess, in the Bible. He's just like in the beginning. Like did he show up? I should know this. I'm sorry. Abraham, around that era, I want to say. Anyway, old guy. And he's seen a lot, and he is a great teacher, and he's kind of like strict in the way he teaches things. So if you don't catch something right away, he's like, remember what I said to you. But he's very friendly, and he talks in terms of universal truths. And because of him, I was able to get on the track of learning about what the all is, all caps, the all, and how that relates to like the Kabbalion, the Hermetic principles, the Emerald tablets. They're all kind of like different incarnations of the same message of universal truths. And like that started everything. Like that's the most foundational thing. Like if you were learning the piano and you needed to learn what the notes were, like it starts with middle C. He showed me what middle C was in this process. And so that is my cat. And so I'm very grateful for that. And then I went on to have a lot of other incredible non-physical teachers, and I have access to pretty much all the things now, which is really exciting, because you can, go to a certain teacher for a certain thing instead of, going to like a podiatrist for a brain tumor. You don't do that. So I will talk to Isis or Gaia or Kali or, about certain issues that meet their kind of vibratory state of like warmth or aggression or whatever. And so if that all feels very overwhelming, it's like, why wouldn't it be overwhelming? In fact, I almost can't believe that I'm having this conversation from where I was like a couple years ago. But the reality of it is true. And so if you've ever had nudges, what I started doing years ago when I wasn't really quite sure, and it was just when I was talking to people that had passed away, because like I said, I've always had kind of a wide open third eye, but vibrationally I wasn't like getting with ascended beings or masters. I was like in a lower state of consciousness, of kind of like living on this plane. They call it the fourth dimension when you're kind of dealing with deceased beings like spirits or even tricksters and stuff. I don't love dealing fourth dimensionally because it's kind of like one of the people I know refers to it as Burning Man of the spiritual world. There's a lot of like crazy circusy stuff going on, and so that would be like Ouija boards and the tricks and stuff like that, where things fly across the room. That's kind of fourth dimensional stuff, which I've experienced. It's not as fun. It's kind of creepy. But when I was communicating with the dead, I would learn how to communicate by, I'd get like chills on certain parts of my body based off of who was communicating with me. And so I learned like if I get like chills right here, someone's just passed away, like when I worked in hospice, or if I got like chills in like one spot of my arm, this is just this person after they passed away. So if I feel it right here, I'm like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. Or like all left side, all right side, or like when my jaw is chilly and it's not a stroke, when like my jaw feels a certain way, I learned to like connect things with certain beings. So that may be something. If you feel like you get messages from spirit, or maybe you don't know the name of what that is, you think it's grandpa or whatever, you can always ask. You can always be like, hey, if this is so and so, like, show me a synchronicity, I connect to that. One of my patients always saw dimes related to their dead grandparent, and so whenever they saw like dimes but also felt like they were communicating with that grandparent, it was like an assurance that you are communicating with that grandparent, you know? And so kind of like learning the language. Like when Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker was learning certain signs for certain things, you're like starting to create a new language if you don't know in words yet, or you don't have access to it. So non-physical teachers, fantastic. I also have another little clip talking about the ones that aren't great and how to discern those. So next time.